Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. We come to the end of week 2 for Through the Omenpaths and Spider-Man. Every Sunday, what I like to do is my meta breakers, if I can get around to it. And my meta breakers are decks that were successfully piloted to Mythic with at least 50 matches and a 60% win rate. So first up here, we've got the Juned Fling archetype, and you'll see people like Mythic Mike have spent a lot of time exploring this archetype throughout the months. And it's definitely seeing more traction right now. There's a lot of exploration happening with this archetype, so you may bump into it on the ladder. But basically what you're leaning on is the absolute beating that Simic Might can do to your opponent if your opponent doesn't have interaction. So very similar to Rakdos Fling from Days Gone By. The only reason why this is called Jund anyway is because of Callous Sellsword, even though it's a stretch. Actually, this one has better black mana than in the past, right? But anyway, you're primarily using this for the burn together to fling this at your opponent. It absolutely gets punished because it's sorcery speed by instant speed interaction, right? So, very easy to 2-for-1 this strategy with black removal, that sort of thing. But if your opponent is doing something like the Sultai Reanimator strategy or the Kona Omniscience strategy, the more that your opponent is playing a combo deck that has minimal interaction, then the more the pure aggro strategy is going to do well. The more control aspects and single point interaction removal that you're coming up against, this deck will not do as well, right? Similarly, things like Mono White Life Gain or Orzhov Sephiroth are going to be able to get outside of this strategy because, like Rakdos, you're trying to kind of calculate how do I hit 20 as quickly as possible. But you can definitely get turn 3 wins with this deck. You've got like the double strike off the Manifold Mouse with the Emberheart Challenger, from Days Gone By with just missing the Heartfire Hero. But Might, when you hit it with a Giant Growth, pumps it and something else, right? So you get these kind of like 2-for-1s for all of your stuff. Now you have to ask yourself, like, why are we bringing in green instead of just saying in Rakdos? And the answer is Might, being able to double your spells, Giant Growth, being able to replace Monstrous Rage to some extent, not perfectly because it doesn't have the trample, right? But then you've got all these +3/+0 tricks, Turn Inside Out, Wild Ride, Overprotect gives you that trample, so you just got a whole bunch of combo interaction, and we'll see it. We'll talk about a different version, and then if you want even a third version of this archetype, go check out Mythic Mike. So Slickshot Show Off, if you can hit this with 2 1-costed spells that give at least 2 power, and then hit it with the Fling, you can hit for 20 damage on turn 3. So anytime you have the Slickshot Show Off plotted against you, definitely try to keep it up interaction. Picnic Ruiner gives you some double strike. Whenever this attacks while you control a creature with power 4 or greater, it gains double strike until end of turn. So you like sorcery speed plus on your Civic Might, so that when it becomes tapped, it gives something else a +X/+X. Works pretty well with the Picnic Ruiner being able to kind of have an additional double strike feel going on. So, check it out. See if it's your type of thing. I forgot to actually talk about the stats here too. So this specific version was created by Ocelot and went piloted for 51 and 21 for a 71% win rate, and hit into Mythic number 548 earlier this week. All of the deck lists will be available in the description through Moxfield links. Number 2 here is Orzhov Sephiroth by Kakashi. Went 107 and 72 for a 60% win rate and entered at Mythic 550. And this one, we've talked about this one in the past, right? But there are some interesting little tweaks to this list that I wouldn't say they're just like completely standard, right? So we've got like the Dark Confidant, which helps you get additional dig. The core of it, though, is overwhelmingly the typical Orzhov shell that we've talked about in the months past, right? So try to surveil stuff into your graveyard through like the Gorehound, hit the Raise the Past. You've got your Vengeful Blood Witch and your Sephiroth, which are your primary win conditions. You've got the Starscape Cleric, which can do this little fun thing where whenever you gain life, your opponent loses life as well, so that can kind of help drain along with the Blood Witch. And then we've got like Bitter Triumph for a little bit of interaction. We've got the Corrupted Conviction, where you can sacrifice a creature to draw 2 cards. So this person really just decided that like they weren't quite getting enough value off of the Raise the Past, or potentially needed an answer if your opponent had a way to hate on the graveyard, which we're seeing a lot of, right? So if your opponent is bringing in those graveyard hates, then this deck has a little bit more of that reach, where you can then use the Dark Confidant and the Corrupted Conviction to get card draw to kind of outvalue your opponent's removal. And then you got Zach Fair, where you can create. This is nice for being able to protect your key pieces that are kind of prone, if your opponent knows what's going on, how to pick apart this strategy. Sorry, I'm still waking up. Gotta get my, let's see, wrong side, right? Gotta get the Red Dwarf mug. A little bit of coffee. Okay, so the third one here is Jund Fling by Boonstake. Went 91 and 57 for a 61% win rate and hit into Mythic 514. Don't usually like to try to do the same archetype twice. I try to give you the version that I like the most. But again, this one's being explored. You can kind of see there's some similarities. This one's not running the Manifold Mouse, but still has the Emberheart Challenger, still has the Slickshot Show Off, isn't running Overprotect, and instead has a little bit more creature-based threats, kind of going for a little bit of the Delirium of the Gruul Delirium, or Gruul aggro, with the Jund coming in, and a little bit of protection with the Royal Treatment. Instead of just accepting that the deck is bad against interaction, you can do that. And then we're bringing in the Full Bore, and it's a way to get the instant speed +3/+2 instead of just +3/+0. And then if you are playing something with Warp, which I don't think there is in this deck, could have some synergies there. But anyway, yeah, same idea. Boost something up really big, hit in with your mites, fling in for the lethal damage. We've got Azorius Auras by twitch.tv/Danny T-Law. I love it when the Magic the Gathering username is a Twitch account. Maybe they're new Magic the Gathering content creator. Anyway, they went 55 and 33 for a 63% win rate. And they have a Mythic, they entered at Mythic 596. So we kind of talked about back during the budget builds, it's kind of giving you my version of Azorius Auras, and this is going in a different direction, and I like it. I think what they're doing, the Wonderweave Aerialist is a really nice card as long as you can modify it with enchantments. I don't know if I'm sold on the Normalize, because this sort of strategy can be really linear, and you just kind of make this super big Voltron. It's a way to protect your Voltron and, save yourself from Wraths, which this strategy is prone to kind of losing to Pinnacle Starcage. So bringing in the Normalize, I think, helps improve that matchup. We've kind of, a lot of the typical culprits other than the Aerialist that we've seen explored before. So we have the Hall Creeper, we've got the Gremlin Tamer, this one, Entity Tracker for the card draw, Optimistic Scavenger to boost all of your other enchantments, Seam Rip for a little bit of interaction. Again, this is another one that I'm not like super sold on including interaction in linear strategy, but it's not my deck. Storm Chaser's Talent for a little bit of enchantment. I think you could do like a room instead of the Storm Chaser's Talent, but this does let you go grab instances and sorceries, which this deck doesn't really have. I mean, you could go get a Normalize later in the game. But it is a creature. It's a 1/1 prowess in the form of an enchantment, so it does have play. Gives you more bodies to hit, because like with the Gremlin Tamer, you're also kind of producing these smaller bodies that you kind of can have additional things to target. So kind of a unique take on Azorius Auras, and that's the point of the Meta Breakers. And this is one that we talked about last week with the Kona combo. It's also called the Simic Omniscience deck, whatever you want to call it. But this one was by No Fear and went 62 and 31 for a 67% win rate. These are all the Mythic numbers you'll see will go down over the week, right? So this one entered at Mythic 836, and that was this morning, I think, or maybe last night, but recently. And so decent deck, definitely can do it. You'll notice from last week that this one is not running any win conditions that went on the spot, so there's no I'm blanking on the name as always. The red dragon, 3 double pip tyrant, whatever it's called, that pings your opponent directly. No corrupting dragon storm in black. We saw both of those explored last week. And instead, this is bringing in a Bloomvine Regent. And the upside to this one is that it can help you kind of ramp. So if they have an answer to Kona, you can kind of ramp into Omniscience. You can ramp into your dragon synergies, right? And what's really nice about this strategy is that, like, right now in best of one, there's a lot of mono red, right? So we've seen kind of the return of mono red as one of the more popular decks, and being able to just gain 3 life every time that a dragon is entering makes it so that this deck has a way to just kind of win out the game, even if they are able to disrupt the Kona, right? Which is nice to have. The downside is that it doesn't win on the spot. So if you're playing up against like another control deck or whatever, you end up with a lot of value on the board, but you don't actually win that turn. And then last but not least is Mono Green Stompy by Pika, or Pika. Went 59 and 29 for a 67% win rate and placed at Mythic 793. And, it's nice to see a little mono green strategy. We've seen it kind of being explored. It hasn't hit it into the top 8 in quite some time, but it's been around in some form, right? So this one, trying to get the balance right between how heavily we're leaning into the counters strategy. And so we've got like protection with the Snakeskin Veil, the Paw Patch Recruit punishes the removal from our opponent. Same with the Royal Treatment. Again, you'll notice the number 8 there, kind of giving you those nice early options for at least hitting 1 by turn 5, right? So you could even go up to 12 if you really wanted to punish it. Innkeeper's Talent, to an extent, kind of punishes the interaction because of the Ward 1 if you go to Chapter 2. But anyway, we've got the Might, which is, like in the Jund decks, is definitely seeing a lot of play right now, right? I think this is the pull into mono green, or the pull into green. And then we've got Frenzied Baloth, being able to have the spell can't be countered, and creature spells you control can't be countered. That one just hurts the control decks, right? Keen-Eyed Curator for if you're coming up against like Is It Prowess and need some sort of, Sultai Reanimator, give you some graveyard hate. And then we get into the counter strategies. So like Snakeskin Veil gives you a counter, Tumblewag gives you a counter, Sentinel of the Nameless City gives you map tokens, which can give you counters. Fenrir gives you a counter whenever you cast a creature spell. It comes in with a +1/+1 counter on it, which is a particularly nice thing to do for your Ouroboros, because at the beginning of combat, it pumps. So if it comes in with a counter, it's going to pump for 2 instead of 1. Kind of speeds up the clock by a full turn. And then we have the Surak, which is another one that can't be countered. And if your opponent is targeting your creatures, then you draw a card. So between the Innkeeper's Talent, the Surak, you're actually running 14 cards that punish something like mono black, right? So might even be a little bit overkill. Again, I like to shoot for 12. But then we've got 22 lands, which seems about right with this curve. It's a little bit on the low side, right? So when you have 21, you're kind of stopping at 3 cards. When you have 23 is when you're stopping at 21 guarantees you 90% of the time to have 2 lands. 23, this is off the top of my head, 90% of the time to hit land 3. And then if you want to hit into land 4 pretty consistently, you need to have 24 or 25 lands, but we can lower that because we have the Llanowar Elves, right? So again, if you want to get into the nitty gritty, which I like to do, you can always pull out your hypergeometric calculator and get into the weeds. But yeah, it looks like, it's got everything that it needs to be able to double spell, do all of that stuff. So 2 double pip, that one needs 21. So actually, it's a little bit shy by bringing in the Soulstone Sanctuary to hit the Frenzied Baloth and the Keen-Eyed Curator 90% of the time. So you could, if you're being, I think, you could tweak this a little bit. And I'm not sure you need to have the Soulstone Sanctuaries. But anyway, again, not my deck. So anyway, thank you for listening to my ramblings. I hope you enjoy it. I do believe that this is going to be my last set. I'm at least playing around with the idea of ending everything. I started streaming in 2020, and I kind of gave myself in 5 years, let's see where we're at. And it's definitely not where it needs to be, right? So like last month, I made $150 off of doing YouTube stuff, and I really do appreciate all the support that people have shown me. It's been wonderful to have built these, this community and these connections with people that I hope I can still stay in contact with. but it's one of those things that the amount of energy and time that it takes to do these meta breakers and the best of one, best of three meta review just really isn't where it needs to be, right? So I probably will bid you all adieu come late November. I'm just letting you know now so that, in late November, to cancel your YouTube memberships and things like that. So again, it's been a real fun treat to be able to talk to you all about my favorite game, Magic the Gathering. And I do think that, with Avatar and things like that, it's looking like I'm not leaving because Magic's in a bad place. I'm just leaving because, $150 is not worth it time wise. So anyway, I hope these find you well. I'll continue to do them until we get to the next set. And yeah, so enjoy the green decks, enjoy the Hemosemic Might, and I will catch you all tomorrow for week 3 of Through the Omenpaths. Take care.